Welcome to Mimi's Sketchbook. Today we're going to be painting a field of wildflowers. We've got some Queen Anne's lace and some clover, and out in this wonderful field of wildflowers to complement our Bible verse here. So get your watercolors and your sketchbook and let's paint. I'm going to try and make a field, and I want to give a sense of distance. So I need to create a skyline, and I'll do that with some putting in the blue for the sky, and I'm going to need a lot because I'm going to go right across the page here. So I'm going to mix up a nice amount of blue. I don't want it dark. I just want it soft and just to indicate the skyline. So I want a little more turquoise in that. Just really soft. You can put in a couple of indication of hills. And then we want some green for the field, because the field, the plants in the field are packed in very tightly. And they are solid. It's dark behind them. I don't want our picture to go very, very dark, but I just want to have this background color in here. And I like to do it fast with a big brush, so it's really nice and loose. And so it's not so dark that the flowers I'm going to paint on top of it have to be really dark. I want these lighter as it goes up and darker towards the bottom here. I'm kind of using not a bright green. I'm using a softer green. Now this, I'm painting in my sketchbook. So this is just a sketch. It's loose and it's I'm just going to hopefully get the idea of the flowers in the field. So I'm going to let this dry for a second, and then we'll come back to it. So while it's a little wet, I'm going to grab my paper towel and just kind of lift a few spots in here, just so there's a little variation in the color. You can barely see it, but it's there. And while it's a little bit white, I'm going to go in and start to put in a suggestion of where I want some of these clover. I want to put some clover in. It's not dark enough. Don't want it too dark. I just want a little suggestion of it. So, and I want the edges to kind of bleed. And the clover is going to be at the bottom. So, we'll just do this. How easy is this? Just random. You can put it over now. I want to put like a little bigger splotches at the bottom and a few smaller ones at the top, because flowers, objects are larger up front and they get smaller as they go back. You could even do a little bit of this, hitting it with your hands like that, just to get a little bit of that pink color in there that I want to get. Now this is a sketch pad, and it's mixed media paper. And although you can paint on it, it does warp a little bit. And so I'm getting a kind of a line right here. So I'm just going to lift that up a little bit so it's not so big. But sometimes some of the things that happen that you really didn't want to happen end up being okay. Happy accidents. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit more and then come back. So our paper is dry now, and we can start to build some of the grasses in here as the background. And I'm going to start with some light green and work kind of back to the front. Nothing bright, just some real subtle little greens. And with the tip of my brush, I'm going to hold my brush straight up, and I'm just going to do some little flicks. Kind of get used to a little kind of flick there. So it's nothing big. It's, I guess you could go up and down. Just get some dense. The fields are very dense, and they're just solid with growth. So I want to start to have a little bit of that feeling here. And if your brush seems like you can't get a real nice fine line, then does it have a tip on it? Can you see the tip? A tip is a tip. It's very fine, but it's when you press down that it gets wider. So just try and hold it and just kind of go up and down, up and down. And I really don't want to go too high into my blue. I want to keep it like we're down low sitting, maybe cross-legged, sitting right in the grass there in our field. And a really nice down low. And I'm just kind of grabbing some already mixed up greens that are sitting on my palette. This is what happens. You just kind of get a palette going, and you can reach into different spots and just grab some paint and just quickly have a variety. You don't want to use all one color. So I'm just creating some little interest back here. This is kind of fun. So what I was going to say, if this type of brush seems to be too thick and you can't get a nice thin delicate line, you can go to get a smaller brush. It's always nice to get a thinner brush, and you can get some lines in with that too. Let's see, I'll try a different color so maybe we can see. I'm going to put some brown in here because not all of our grasses are alive now. Some of them are fading. In a field, there's all kinds of grasses, and some are bloom and grow earlier, and some come up later. So some are just emerging from the ground, and some are done with their life cycle. And so I just want to get a few varieties of colors in here. And I can even, they all don't have to be upright. They can look like they're knocked over. But who knows what's crawling around in the fields besides people. You know, it's hard to find fields nowadays. I like to go out and collect wildflowers, and it can be a challenge. I can be driving around quite a while before I find a nice field to pick from. So I've got a lot of greens in here, and I'm going to, in the back, so I should move up a little bit, but I think I'm going to just bring a few down, not too many, just a suggestion of some things up here, not too many. And actually this thin brush should be for things in the distance, because things get smaller and skinnier as they go farther away, and stems get bigger as they get closer. So this is just kind of fun. Not too many, just a few, mostly upright, but it's okay to put a few at an angle. Okay, so there's that. All right, I want to put in some Queen Anne laces. So now I'm going to mix up a green that's just a little brighter, not too bright. You're going to have to find a color in the palette that you're working with that is pleasing to you, but not bright like a phthalo green. A phthalo green is a very, very bright color, and we don't really want that. So a Queen Anne's lace is a fun flower to paint, and I'm going to just put one that's up tall here, because remember we're sitting down in the field, and these Queen Anne's laces are growing up in front of us. So I'm just going to put a line like that, and I'm going to start here is where these little brackets are going to come up, and they're all going to head in towards the center there. And there's tiny little things going on here. I'm not sure all that they are, but they're there. So there's the beginning of one. And on the outside, there's going to be the flower. And the underside of the flower is a little greener than the top. And I'm just putting tiny little dots, kind of going in little like scoopy shapes that would go underneath the white top part of the Queen Anne's lace. And then there's always a couple little things hanging down here. So there's one. That'll be our main one. Now let's put a smaller one maybe over here. And we don't have to show the whole stem going down. We suggested it. I might put it again so you can suggest it. And these are very delicate. I'm going to make this one a little more closed up. So here's the top of it, and I'm going to come around like this so it's not the same. And let's put our little dots are going to be closer together. And I'm just kind of tapping to get the paint in there a little darker, come out a little bit. I don't want it to be the exact same size, and I sort of wished it hadn't ended up like this, exactly the same height, but it's okay. Maybe I'll lift this up a little bit so it's a little higher. Hey, we're the artist here, so we can change it if we don't like the way something turned out. So here, I'll just kind of tip this up here so it's not exactly the same. And let's put some, now I'm going to have to get this a little darker so it shows up, because we're going in front of these other, all this other flowers and grass edge here. So I think I'll put one, how about if I put one right here? I don't want to put it exactly halfway, so I'll put a little dot there to show where the base is. And let's put another little one here that's not fully open, or maybe it's closing. And we'll put some, I like to see the space in between it. I don't care I put that too close together, but I'll remember that next time. So here's one that's smaller, and let's put one here. There's my point. And so this one we're going to have open. Let's pull down a stem. I might have to make him a little darker so he shows up, he or she. And yeah, let's put another one. We don't want it to be absolutely even. Let's put another one. Let's put one over here. Now I'm going to put this Bible verse right here. So it wouldn't, I don't want to put something right underneath it. So maybe I'll have this coming like this. So it'll peek out from behind. And maybe one up here. This looks like it's leaning away from me a little bit, so I'll kind of go like that. Kind of see the outside of it. This is a sketchbook. I am not worrying about perfection. I am having fun painting loosely. And if I worried about perfection, I would never do anything. I'd be so caught up in the fact I can't make it perfect that I would never try anything. So I'm just having fun. Okay, so I'm going to put a few more, another layer of green on here where the paint's dried, and now this is going to create a little layer of color and make it a little more interesting so it's not flat. So we have a little more interest here. Okay, and I want to make also some clover. We're going to keep this, even though it's a field and there's many varieties of plants growing in here. I'm just going to keep it to 2. And let's make some clover. And so I'm going to, here's this spot here. I don't have to use all of them, but I think I'm just going to go right here and emphasize this little spot. Going to add a little bit, get a warm color in here. This one will be up close to, so this might be our biggest. So here we go. I'm going to let that dry. And let's put one here. A little bolder color, stronger color. And these are kind of a little bit circular, uneven circle. Okay, here's one back here, a little farther. And maybe we can put one right here. I'm trying to keep this part of it fairly light. I'm trying to warm up the color a little bit. There we go. And this is like the center, just the center. So let's let that dry a minute. And let's put some leaves on here. And I want to mix up a little different color. And I'm using my palette here. And sometimes I can come over here and grab colors over here. It's kind of a pretty color. The green and the pink kind of makes a like an older stem color, so why don't we use that? And I'm going to bring a stem down here. And let's put the beginning of some leaves in there. Change the direction of that. Those are the stems. Let's put some marks in. Most of this is going to be covered up. And then we need some leaves on here. And there's three. The clover has I'm going to put like 3 leaves on here. So I'm just going to go 1. That doesn't show up too well. And leaves don't even have to connect. They have to touch. I'm suggesting that they are kind of get a leaf shape in there. There's one. It's going to be because this is my closest one. And then part of this is going to go behind here. So here I'm going to put some wider leaves too. Try to get 1, 2, 3. Just break up this area down here. It all doesn't have to make sense. I'm just suggesting wider leaves coming out here. Maybe some coming in from this side. So I didn't bring any of this pink over on this side. I want to do that. Just add a little bit more. What this part that I'm painting is actually the center of the flower. It's like the dense center, and we're going to paint the tiny little petals that come up to make a cluster around it. But this has to be dry first. So our little pink areas here, our clover is dry. So now I've got a little stronger mix of, oops, had some green in that. Pink that we're going to make the petals. Let's see how this looks. And what we're going to do is sort of start at the bottom where they flare out. Now this is delicate. I don't know if you're going to see. I'm going to have to maybe go with this. And I'm going to start guess I will have to make this a little stronger. Now if this were just for my eyes, I think I like that it's a little delicate and light. But I don't know if you can see this. So maybe I will start at the top, and I'm going to go outside the pink line. And I'm going to just come around like this and paint like they're pointing a little bit towards the center. And then make another row. And another row here. And then come around and put a couple tiny ones that are facing me. And I think I might just touch a few of these so if they're still wet and you touch them with the darker paint, then their paint will flow and you'll get this, fun effect here. But I think my paint had to be a little bit darker. Okay, so I'll do that again. I'm going to start up here, just tiny little strokes. And these are like the little petals. And then go in between. And then kind of fill in as you come down. Let's get some darker in here. And let's do this one. Now that certainly isn't a perfect circle, is it? It's a mishmash, but that's okay. That's okay. It's not going to defeat me here in making this painting. I'm going to try to get the rest of it a little bit better. And actually that isn't even going to show up too much. So there has to be contrast between these little petals I'm making and the light ones I put in behind it so that they pop out. So I either have to go darker or lighter. I think I'll, right here, I want each of these little petals to show up, so just make it a little darker. Here, you have this dense in here. Okay, and we'll put just a few on here. Not many, just a suggestion. And then here's some back here. A couple little dots to show that they're all back in here. And then I'll come over here and do this one. So, as I was saying before, it's hard to find a field anymore. And everybody wants to manicure their lawns and make everything look nice and neat. And unfortunately, I live in the suburbs, and this used to, not long ago, be a very rural area, and I have to travel to find a field. And sometimes it's a ditch along the side of the road, and even those are being mowed. You can't find the wildflowers you used to find because the town comes along and they want to keep those drainage ditches open, and so everything is plowed. And it's we're really missing out on a lot of beauty in those wildflowers that come up. So it's a little disappointing, very disappointing. So if you ever drive by a field, and it's okay for you to walk in it, go walk in a field. It's absolutely full of amazing, beautiful things. So I think that's all I'm going to do here. On them, they look pretty good. So we have to let those dry. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I've got some white paint, and this is called gesso. Gesso is just an opaque paint that artists use to prepare canvases, but it's also Very good for making solid white areas. Now you can use tempera paint or acrylic paint, or you can use house paint. You can use primer. You can use ceiling paint. Any kind of paint you want. This is a sketchbook. We don't have to stick to the rules. You just want to use something that's white that's going to kind of pop and create these white little buds here on our Queen Anne's lace. And our Queen Anne's lace, I'm just at the top. We're going to see, because we're seeing, remember, we're seeing these from the side. So here's our Queen Anne's lace. Now, unfortunately, my background isn't all that dark. So I want to set these just on top of the dark green, hoping that that will show up. Let's see how it looks up here. The contrast could be better, but I didn't want it to be a dark painting. I want it to be light and so I'm just taking the tip, you can see, and just kind of dotting it on. And because this is pretty thick paint, it's going to take a while to dry, so give it some time. Don't go closing up your sketchbook if that's what you're painting on. Give it time. Give it time to dry, because it's going to take a while. And sometimes you need to go back over it a couple of times, let it dry a little bit, and then build it up so that white is really stands out. I just might break this up a little bit. Put some little white flecks around here and there. Maybe those are little daisies that are growing in the background. Who knows? Okay. Now, let's see what happens. What can I do? I want this to be a little darker down here, so I think I'm just gonna this might mess the whole thing up. Who knows? So I added some blue to the green. I'm just going to kind of bring it up and let it fade out as I come up, I think. Let's see what happens if I can do that. This is breaking all the rules of painting. But it's okay to be a rebel here in our sketchbook or in our painting, whatever you're painting on. So as I said before, I'm painting in a sketchbook, and it's a multi. It's a let me show you. It's a mixed media. So it does take some watercolor, but the edges do curl. So it works best with pencil and sketching and pen and things like that. It holds up pretty good. But for watercolor, it is limited. But that's okay. This is a sketchbook. This is just for me, but I choose to share it with you. And I can do whatever I want. So here I'm just kind of building up that dark. I do like this a little bit better, that it's dark. I like that, even though it's not perfect. And I think I'll put some over here, just so it's dark at the bottom. Now you could come in here and connect the pages if you want. I hope you're painting along with me. It would be so great. It wouldn't be very interesting, I think, if you were just watching me and not doing anything. So I hope you have a piece of paper at least and a pencil or a pen, ballpoint pen, and just sketching along. My number one thing to draw with is a ballpoint pen. There's usually one around, and you can come up with some great doodles and sketches with a ballpoint pen. Let me see. Let me see. I know I've got some. There's a ballpoint pen. Look at all that detail and fun. I was sketching, I remember, I don't just like to sit and watch TV, so I will pick up a ballpoint pen and draw with that while I'm watching TV. So I kind of listen and draw at the same time. Fill in, build up areas, and that's with the ballpoint pen. So you can get a lot of nice things with the pen. You absolutely do not need to go out and buy very expensive supplies. This little set, this was relatively expensive. I'd say it was about $40, but I've been using this constantly for 3 years now, and you don't need a lot of paint. And so I think that was a pretty good buy. Sometimes people go out and spend ridiculous amounts of money, and it's crazy. You know what's a great buy? Go to the Dollar Tree and buy their markers there. The Dollar Tree markers I use all the time because you can draw with them and then you can go back with a paintbrush, just with water, and you can blend it. Let me see if I've got something that I did with that. I think that's one that I did with the markers. That's with the markers. I know there's... That's with the markers. So I colored them in, and then I took a wet paintbrush and just went around, and it's like watercolor. It's a Dollar Tree, and I think you maybe get 20 for $1. Oh my gosh, isn't that the best? Okay, so let's finish this up. And I'm going to just make a little bit of a highlight. I'm going to take some of the pink that I have, and I'm mixing it with some of the white that I have, and I'm just going to go in here and make a few little highlights so these pop out. A few of these little petals pop out. It is such a humid day. It's like nothing is drying here. You don't want to do all of these, just a few here in that solid. I just put a couple like that in the solid center part so they pop out. And that's about that. That's about it here. I'm going to try to blend that up. Now, a sketchbook is one of the most enjoyable things I know. You can take it with you. You can paint whatever's in front of you. You can use one of these mixed media ones, or they have nice small watercolor ones the same size. And this is doable. We can sit down and make a picture painting in as simple or as complex as you want in just a few minutes, because it's a small page and it's done. So now we're going to let this dry and come back and maybe do a few more things. So everything is dry right now, and I'm going to take my marker and just have some fun going in here and highlighting a few things. I want to highlight some of these close-up clover leaves. Just put a little definition in there. Just so they pop a little bit. And what could I do here? Maybe I'll just go around a few of these lower petals on here so they pop. I don't want to go around all of them. Just a few. So just a little suggestion of detail. And our three main flowers, that's all. And then up here, I think I'm going to put a little detail too on our Queen Anne's lace. Maybe around the bottom, go around the bottom of the white dots that we put on. These are the little cluster flowers that are at the top. And maybe even put a little indication of these tiny little leaves, just so they pop. Or I think I'll put some dots above it. Just because they need a little help here to show up. Do this little shadow like underneath to help show them up, to help them show up and show them up. And just a few little dots above it. So I went ahead and glued in my Bible verse with a glue stick. You can use a double-sided tape or whatever you have around. I wouldn't use Elmer's glue, that really warps the page. But here's our Bible verse. I added a little butterfly and just maybe darkened up, made these colors a little richer. But there you have it. And also put the date on your picture. Helps you to remember what was going on at that time in your life. And thank you for joining me here at Mimi's Sketchbook. Bye, and God bless your day.